Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 34th episode of Battles and Voices. I'm Latika, and I'm the founder and host. Battles and Voices brings together different stories in healthcare in order to build a supportive community for the future generation of medicine. Please welcome our guest, Anna. Anna, thank you so much for being a part of this episode. It means so much to us that you'll be one of our guests today on Battles and Voices. Feel free to introduce yourself and share some things about who you are.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Anna Leyrer, also known as Paging Swamp Girl online. I'm a second year medical student based in New Orleans. I was born and raised in Southeast Louisiana, and I'm an aspiring neurologist, neurosurgeon, or ENT, ear, nose, throat doctor. I'm not sure yet. I'm keeping my mind open, but I like above the shoulders anatomy.
I really love that. So our first question for you today is, can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to go into healthcare, um, and what you do currently?
Sure. So I'll start with kind of the second part of the question, and that I'm in medical school, specifically a doctor of medicine program, MD program. And what inspired me to do that was the doctors I had interactions with when I was younger. Around the age of 13, I had a sports injury and I had to go to a lot of doctors because the pain was out of proportion to my x-ray and it was not going away like it should after a sports injury. So I was like 6 months out and still having a lot of pain. So I had to go to doctor after doctor. And some of the experiences were not so great. I don't know if they were having a bad day or what was going on. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But a lot of them, I think, just saw a teenage girl and just didn't really take it seriously. That I was in really a lot of pain in my left foot. But then after about a year, I went to a pediatric rheumatologist who was amazing, diagnosed me with a rare condition called complex regional pain syndrome. And I was able to kind of stabilize my condition enough to start exercising again. I couldn't be like a competitive runner like I was. That's how I got my sports injury was from cross country. But I was able to like get that nice positive experience where he gave me hope and companionship and really just inspired me. I'm like, wow, this is what a doctor could be and what they could do for a patient. And I could do that if I were a doctor in the future. So that's kind of what set me on this path.
Yes, I definitely have to agree with you. I think nowadays, healthcare is kind of like overlooked, and patients get overlooked as well. So I think it's really important to have that balance between your patients and the physicians. Just try to like come together and yeah, find the balance and feel empathy for everyone.
Right.
So, how do you think being dismissed by physicians in the past helped shape how you will treat your own patients someday?
Yeah, I definitely think it shaped me a lot and it keeps me grounded. And when I see patients, no matter how tired I am or all the barriers for doctors nowadays, it's definitely a really hard job and it's sometimes thankless work, but especially with the negativity on the news these days. But remembering that the patient comes because that concern is about their condition is really real. They're probably in a lot of pain. Nobody really wants to go to the doctor, in my experience. Like, I don't ever really want to go to the doctor, even though I'm in medical school. And so just remembering that if people are coming, taking time out of their work, out of their school, and coming to see you, it's out of true concern, whether we can find the answer or not. That doesn't mean it's not real. It doesn't mean their pain isn't serious. It doesn't mean their concern isn't valid. It might just be that we don't have the answers because in medical school, I found out that, no matter how much we learn, there's more we don't know. And even though medical science has come a long way, we know so much more than we knew 10 years, even like 20 years ago, 5 years ago. There's still so much we don't know. So instead of just assuming that if you can't figure it out, the patient might be lying or the patient's problems are not valid, realizing that it might just be that we don't have the answers. But one thing you can always provide a patient, whether we have the answers or not, is that empathy, sympathy, being a companion through their journey, giving them hope and what we can do for them, like treating symptoms, even if we can't treat the illness. Um, so just kind of being an emotional support is always available, and you're able to do that no matter if we can help the patient with their diagnosis or not, or actually diagnose them or not.
Yes, I definitely have to agree with you again. So what's something that you wish that more physicians understood about how their words can really affect their patients overall?
Right. So I think being a physician is really a place of power. We have a lot of knowledge, and a lot of people have like no knowledge about medical, or medical stuff or their body. Like really, medical literacy is pretty low, especially in my state. We don't have a lot of medical education or even a lot of sex ed in our education curriculums. And so I think you have to realize that they're very vulnerable and our words matter, and that we can give patients hope, we can be supportive of patients, we can make them feel better, at least that they're not alone. Or we can make them feel like their feelings are not valid, that maybe they're crazy. We can be very, very harmful, or we can be very, very helpful. So I think it's very important to be thoughtful before you go in and talk to a patient, like after you're doing the plan, every step of the way, be very thoughtful in that we're in a very powerful position, and you could do really great things for the patient, or we can do really harmful things for the patient. And to always remember that, because I know we're just people, which is true, but people really look up to physicians, and they're there in a very sometimes hopeless state. And so we can either give them hope, or we can really traumatize them.
Right, I do have to agree with you. And I like how you kind of put it into how like the words could harm or really traumatize a patient, or it could be really helpful. I think nowadays, you know, patients and doctors just need to come together and, both sides should show empathy and yeah. So can you share a moment in your training or your past experiences where you kind of noticed like some small gaps or challenges in the healthcare system?
Sure, there are a lot of places where that happens, but one that's been on my mind recently that I've kind of come to understand more and see more is the injustices patients who have been incarcerated or are currently incarcerated face in the healthcare system. It's often hard for us to even do a physical exam because in a lot of hospitals, even if the patient is unconscious, if they're incarcerated, they're required to have handcuffs and the wrist anklet cuffs. I don't know what they're called, but that can make it really hard to check their hands, elbows, arms, I'm interested in like neurology and neurosurgery, so I want to check their muscle reflexes and stuff like that. And you can't really do that fully with those metal things in the way. So that makes it difficult. But also, it's hard to have them have privacy that they deserve as a human, come in and get help as a patient, which is one of the basic things we also made our oath about, our Hippocratic oath is to give patient confidentiality, and that's really hard to do whenever there's a guard in the room. And a lot of time it's required for the guard to be in the room. And it's really hard to also have our plans, like if we make a plan for a patient who's incarcerated and they go back to the prison or wherever they're staying, to make sure that's fulfilled, because a lot of time that depends on if the guards and the staff at that prison are willing to do that. And a lot of time that's not the case, or we can't give them discharge paperwork. So a normal patient, if they forget something that we told them, they can look at their paperwork, like, oh, they put me on this medication. They told me to come back if this problem happens. But we can't give them paperwork because that's considered contraband. So there's just a lot of limits in what we can do for incarcerated patients. And there's some ways around it to better their care, but there's just a lot of limits. And I think it really, really affects their health. And I think if you're making the Hippocratic Oath as a doctor, we are supposed to be helping everyone. It doesn't have any kind of line about you're only supposed to help one person, one type of person. So that makes me very upset to see those inequities and I try to work around them, but it's hard.
Yeah, I really like never knew anything about that. And I think it's really important how you explained it. I do have a side question for that
Mhm.
question that I just asked. So you said there could be small ways where, it could probably like solve that problem. So like do you like think of like do you think there's like any like small changes that could happen for that problem?
Yeah, I've met some really great healthcare workers who really care for patients no matter what background they come from. And some of the things I've seen that I've definitely have jogged down in my head that I want to do whenever I'm a physician are like, okay, if you want to do a good physical exam, you can ask the guard to take the patient's cuffs off. So usually
Mhm.
they're okay with that, like for you to do that as long as the guard's in the room. And so usually you can do that. Really, I've never had a negative experience with an incarcerated patient. So I think some people are afraid, but a lot of the time they're in so much pain and
Mhm.
they know we're there to help them. They're not going to hurt you most of the time. So, and then that's one way is asking for the cuffs to be off so you can do a good physical exam. Another thing, and this might differ for hospital hospital, but I know at the hospital that my school does our rotations in, we're allowed to have the guard step out for a little bit if they can see us. So to give the patient some privacy, like if you're doing like a pelvic exam or something that really is just vulnerable and you really the patient deserves their privacy, or you're about to talk to them about something stigmatized, like, oh, you might have a positive AIDS test or something that you don't want the guard to go back and tell the whole prison.
Mhm.
Um, and you can ask them to step out in some hospitals, but keep the door cracked to where they can see you and they can see the patient, but they might not be able to see or like hear the whole conversation or see the patient's like private areas.
Mhm.
But just to make sure you're both safe, but still give some patient privacy. So those are two ways that I've found recently that I think will help.
That's good. Yeah. So you also mentioned that you have started mentoring pre-meds and first year students. That's amazing. Congratulations. So what gap did you see when kind of leading that mentoring situation?
Yeah, so I mean, I was also pre-med once and I noticed how expensive everything is. Like even to get tutoring or to get mentorship, there's a lot of kind of almost predatory content on social media and online, getting pre-meds to pay money for mentorship or pay money for MCAT prep or MCAT advice or interviews, practice interviews. And that costs a lot. And it really is a barrier for people who are lower income trying to get into med school. But it's so important that we have a diverse, like, group of doctors coming in because our patients are diverse. And so for us to understand their backgrounds, it's good to have a variety of backgrounds in medical school, to have that sympathy. So I wanted to like be a free resource. I am thankful that, okay, I have loans to pay for tuition. I don't need money. So I'm just mentoring for free and giving MCAT advice in the hopes that it can save some pre-meds money and let them not have to buy more resources. They could just ask me about, how to make their list of schools they want to apply to, how to make their MCAT schedule. I'm happy to help with that. For free because it's so expensive to get into medical school, especially even the MCAT. But there are ways to get around that by doing they have a fee waiver with the AMC. So if anyone's listening and wants to try out for that, you can do that if you have financial need. It will waive your MCAT fee.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. I'm in high school now, so like every time I like, try to study for the ACT or SAT, and usually I can't learn by myself or, just I don't have that ability to like watch a YouTube video and retain that information. And, when students like me try to go on different websites, you usually have to pay for some kind of tutoring, and that really sucks because high school students don't have that kind of money for a tutoring session that only lasts like 45 minutes.
Right.
So I really love the work that you're doing. I think it's amazing, and yeah, thank you so much for helping out the
Well, thank you.
med community. Yeah. So, what has been the most rewarding interaction you've had while mentoring those students?
Definitely seeing them get into medical school or nursing school or PA school, whatever they're going for. Whenever I see them actually reach that goal, it's a big deal because I know the stats on that. I don't know if you've looked at it, but the stats to get into med school are crazy. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people apply. And then, for example, at my medical school, only 200 people every year get in. So at least are chosen for our seats. We have 200 seats. So that is really crazy stats. So whenever I know they work so hard, because I see them working so hard, I see them reaching out for help and chasing their dreams, and then they finally get that acceptance, that's really a big deal and really amazing to me and just really exciting. Like I'm like excited for them, like as if it was me.
That's so amazing. So I know we talked a lot about medical school, mentoring, all the work that you've been doing. So, oh Lord, to de-stress yourself, what are some hobbies that you enjoy outside of healthcare in order to kind of relieve that stress?
Yeah, it's really important to relieve stress in medical school, and we all do it in different ways. I personally really like to exercise. Well, I don't always like it during it, or but it is good for stress relief. And I love to read, mainly romance books or webtoons. I also like to cook and bake and play music. So I sing and I play piano. So I do that with one of my medical school friends sometimes to kind of de-stress whenever we have the time. And also seeing my friends, family, fiance, that can be really rejuvenating. Those are just a couple.
I really love that. I also like to bake and cook in my free time,
Nice.
and I also love to read romance books as well. Is there any that you recommend as far as romance books?
Oh, well, I mean, because I'm in science, I love
Mm-hmm.
all the Allie Hazelwood books.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know her, but she's an author who does a lot of like STEM romances.
Oh,
Um,
really? I might have to
Yeah,
get
so like
into
a
that.
biology, she has one that's like on the biology students,
Mm-hmm.
one that's like a pre-med students, one who's like a neuroscientist, one is a physicist. And the main characters are in STEM, and so I can relate to that because I'm like, oh, they're doing a Western blot in the lab, and I did that in
hmm
college. So it's just stuff I can relate to, and I remember from doing STEM.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. So could you tell us more about your Instagram account, Paging Swamp Girl, and what inspired you to kind of start it?
Yeah, so part of it was mentoring students. I wanted to be like, whenever I was a pre-med, it was really helpful for me because I didn't have any family members who were doctors to see social media accounts who were doctors or med students or pre-meds. When they would give advice online, that was really, really helpful. And so I wanted to be an accessible resource like that, as well as I wanted to raise awareness on Louisiana health issues. I think we have very specific health issues here that a lot of other states don't have, or they have their own issues. And so I wanted to raise awareness about that. So, like, for example, we have a huge population of unhoused citizens in my town. So I try and always like promote the shelters I volunteer at and stuff like that, try and get them their basic needs. Um, so just kind of promoting my like state in my area and their health needs as much as possible with my platform and mentoring students. That's why I started. And also it's just fun to document medical school so I can look back on it.
I really love that. And you kind of inspired me to start my own Instagram account whenever, I get into PA school or med school.
Yay.
So could you tell us more about Camp Tiger and the experience you had while raising money for children with disabilities?
Yeah, so Camp Tiger is a free camp that my medical school puts on. It's our first year service project. and I participated in it for 2 years before my first year and after my first year. And we bring kids with disabilities for free to like all different um, field trips in New Orleans, like the Ottoman Park, City Park, Aquarium. Like we bring them to so many places in a week, and it's super duper fun. But the best part is that they're safe because they're with medical students who are trained in CPR and like basic. We know some basic first aid, and we have a couple doctors on staff who come with us as well as that it's all free. So, but the way we fundraise for that, one of the biggest ways we fundraise for that is through an auction we do in the spring before camp. And I was part of the auction team, and we raised over like $100,000 for the camp, which was awesome because whenever I was doing the camp and the kids are really smiling and the parents really appreciate knowing their kids are having a good time and are safe. I knew it was because we were able to raise enough money to make it not stressful for anyone. So that was really awesome. And I think it's really difficult to bring kids with disabilities to so many places. There's just so many barriers. And also it's so expensive, like the Ottoman Zoo and the aquarium and everything. I love them, but they've gotten pretty expensive. So just making it to where they can have a fun week without worrying about that was awesome.
Yes, I really love the work that you're doing. Um, so our last question is, do you have any advice to give to any of the members who are listening right now, hoping to enter the same line of work, or even medical school?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is this might be kind of cliche, but not to give up. It's a really, really hard path, and there might be moments where you don't think you can do it, or you're really tired, and just don't give up if it's what you really want to do. Don't give up. You're going to get there. And ask for help whenever you're struggling. Don't just struggle by yourself. A lot of doctors, medical students like me and other doctors, I've gotten so many shadowing opportunities or advice from doctors just by asking. A lot of them are so willing to help you and also reach out for tutoring, reach out to your teachers if you're struggling. I've practically lived in my teacher's office hours in organic chemistry. Um, just if you're ask for help and don't give up. You're going to be just fine. You're going to get where you need to be.
Well, that is some amazing advice. Anna, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and all your future goals. It was truly inspiring to hear about your passion and how you've given back to the whole community. To everyone tuning in, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Battles and Voices. Your engagement and loyalty means the world to us. If you enjoyed this conversation, then be sure to follow, share, and stay tuned for more episodes on Battles and Voices. We'll see you next time.